vulnerable children. I'm particularly interested in Amalia and Jawansa's, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
And maybe even Howard. Are you explicitly stating in your CBAs about the developers working with schools? As you mentioned, Kenwood High School is going to have their field destroyed. I'm wondering, are you specifically working with the developers to talk about youth training and youth employment?
So I'll start. So Hyde Park Academy is named explicitly in the CBA. So for us, it sort of gets at the transparency question. For us, it was important not just to ask them to be more transparent and accountable, but to also model it ourselves. So the CBA was developed through a robust ground-up process, right? We had small focus groups and then 3 big town hall meetings where hundreds of people attended and weighed in on it. So from that process, the CBA outlines 6 different areas of concern for us: economic development, education, employment, housing, sustainability, and transportation. And so in the education part of it, Hyde Park, again, is mentioned specifically, but then also just really identifying a radius around Jackson Park where the center is going, that there needs to be direct interaction with those schools, right? The idea if you have, again, this was originally conceived when it was a real library, but you have this sort of historic institution coming into a neighborhood, right? There's all sorts of opportunities there in terms of leadership development, world history, civics, et cetera, right? And so how are you connecting directly with those schools to bring those young people in, to go through the original source material, again, originally, that was the idea, but to take real world examples to challenge their critical thinking skills, right? So this is a real incident in history that happened. How would you deal with it? These are the facts. Use that information to come to a conclusion, and then look at what the former president decided to do, and critique it, right? I mean, that's how many people will have that opportunity to do that with the actual source material. And so I think the Truman Presidential Library does a version of that currently. But what are the benefits that's going to come to those schools, right? Again, we're talking about schools that typically don't have a science lab, don't have a librarian, if they have a librarian, right? Don't have working air conditioning. And so there has to be investment in these schools, again, as in the way that our taxpayer dollars are going to make this a reality, because they're saying they want this to be a benefit. They need to show it to us.
The short answer is yes. When McCaffrey originally proposed the development, he had proposed that it be high tech, and we wanted to make sure our students had access to that. So that was built into the CBA. The other thing was that because this is one of the largest developments and it's more than twice the size of the Loop, once development starts, it's projected to take anywhere between 10 to 40 years to complete. I mean, if you can imagine the length of time it would take to build 2 downtowns, right? So we also wanted to create a pipeline of students that would qualify for any jobs throughout the life of the development, not only the construction part of it, but after, and all the different components, right? It's not just construction, right? They're going to need lawyers, they're going to need realtors, they're going to need management, they're going to need a little bit of everything. So the short answer is yes, we built that in. We also built in a community center. It's been one of the top requests when we've had our listening sessions on what we want the developer to do. So, and that community center in our CBA has been built in to be tied to the community schools so that the schools have access to a community center that is, and maybe we should call it community campus, but it's not just like after school and tutoring. It's not just physical activities and something similar to like a Boys and Girls Club or YMCA. But we have built in tech center, arts wing, theater, I think even movie theater, so it's an all-encompassing thing. I think my advice would be, whatever development looks like in your neighborhood, and whatever makes sense for your schools or your youth, then just build it in. It's, the limit of CBAs is your imagination. So I like to say, I keep my feet on the ground, but my head in the clouds, right? Just dream of it. The other thing I would say is it's not just about the schools. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's also about our youth. So our youth, and I know for the Obama Presidential Center, youth have been a very important component in having a say on what are parts of the components for CBA too. So that would be my other suggestion, is that the schools are at the table and the youth are at the table. And one of the schools that are closest at the table, I anticipate would be probably one of the signers of the CBA.
And I forgot about the employment part of it. So there's a couple of areas. One, when we're talking about local hiring, and we're also pushing for independent monitoring, not somebody who works for the foundation or the city to say, yeah, they're doing the right thing. So again, going back to the transparency. But so we identified what they call hard to employ populations, but including young people within that, right? So in the local hiring, it's people with backgrounds, it's young people, persons with disabilities, etc., right? But then also for the center itself, the docent positions need to be open to young people, to high school students, right? So those positions specifically need to be made available to young people. But then also, again, within the center, the museum or whichever component you're talking about, there needs to be internships made available to those young people as well, right? So if you have an archivist that's been hired from the University of Chicago comes up a lot. But if you have someone who's been hired from that institution, right, they need to be working with young people from the community to learn that skill in a hands-on way. So yeah, they can go to school to get the credentialing, but they actually have the real-world experience of what an archivist does, right? So they can go anywhere around the world to fulfill that job, right? Same thing for any of those positions.
We have the same thing. Our focus is manufacturing, and ours is to get our youth into that. So, but you build it on what the developer is wanting to do and what your community needs are.
Great, thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon. I think it's noon time, I'm not sure. But this is very interesting to me. I'm from the Austin area, and working with